ごめんって何度も言われるより、ありがとうって一回言ってくれた方が相手は満足するの。謝って欲しいんじゃなくて、してあげたくてしたことなんだから。ね。
Hey everybody, welcome to another lesson of learning Japanese. We are going over another anime line of the day because it's a brand new day. And so the show that we'll be covering again is going to be Day Zero, and we are going to be covering the 8th episode of the show. And the line that we're going to use for today in this video is going to be, I'd rather hear thank you once than sorry over and over again. I did it because I wanted to help, not because I wanted you to apologize. And so this is a really cool line that you could maybe use when you're talking to someone to win them over as a really cool person. So with that in mind, let's hear what it is in Japanese, then proceed to break it down so that we can use it, maybe modify it a bit, and tailor it to something else that we want to say.
ごめんって何度も言われるより、ありがとうって一回言ってくれた方が相手は満足するの。謝って欲しいんじゃなくて、してあげたくてしたことなんだから。ね。
Okay, so that was a pretty long line. It's a bit convoluted with the wording, but let's break it down so we can get a clear idea of everything that's going on. So first, just to reiterate the line, ごめんって何度も言われるより、ありがとうって一回言ってくれた方が相手は満足するの。謝って欲しいんじゃなくて、してあげたくてしたことなんだから。And so again, the English translation for this is, I'd rather hear thank you once than sorry over and over again. I did it because I wanted to help, not because I wanted you to apologize. So now let's break down this line bit by bit. First up, we are going to have the word gomen in quotations, and gomen is a pretty common word that we should probably all know, and it's just going to mean sorry, basically. Right after that, we have the strong te, because that's just going to be the quotation marker, so it's marking gomen as a quotation. Right after that, we have our first vocabulary term, which is going to be nandomo, and this is going to translate to over and over, often, or many times over. Then right after that, we have the verb you in its passive form, and that's going to be iwareru. And so what we have so far is gomen te nandomo iwareru, and that's going to translate to basically being said to sorry over and over again. So we're going to take that whole idea right there, and we're going to follow it by the word yori, which is basically going to establish this comparison in which what is stated before it is going to be the less than thing, and what's after it is going to be the more than thing. So what this is going to translate to so far is basically more than being said to sorry all the time. And now moving on, we have another word in quotations because this is going to be the thing that wants to be said more than, and this is going to be arigatou, which is going to translate to basically thank you. We have the strong te particle again because it's marking the quotation. Right after that, we have the word ikkai, which is just going to translate to one time. Then we have the verb you again because we want to establish this meaning of saying again. This time it's going to be in its te form. So you turns into itte. Then it's going to be combined with the word kureru, which is another verb which means to receive basically. And that in turn is going to be conjugated into its ta form because we're invoking another grammar pattern here, which is the ta form of a verb plus the phrasing ho ga to basically mean the side of that is something. And this is kind of getting a bit confusing, so if you need a refresher on the ta form plus ho or any of the grammar patterns, do check out our channel because we've covered most of these before. So let's skip back a bit and recap. Arigatou te ikkai itte kureta hoga, and this is just going to translate to basically being told thank you one time is something, and this is going to kind of have an emphasis of sides, which one is better because of the whole word here as well as the yori that we had before, which means more than. So being said thank you one time is going to be a lot more blank than being said sorry a lot of times. And now as we go on to the sentence, we're going to find out what that blank is, and that's just going to be the phrasing aite wa manzoku suru no, and aite is going to be our next vocabulary term, which is going to translate to partner or addressee. It's basically referring to your conversational partner. We have the particle wa marking that as the topic of the sentence. Then we have manzoku suru, which is going to be a verbal noun. Manzoku means satisfaction, so manzoku suru is basically going to be pleased or to be satisfied. Then at the end of the sentence, we just have the particle no to kind of indicate this explanation of something. And so with that, we now know what the comparison is. It's basically saying being said thank you one time is more satisfying for your conversational partner than being said sorry a bunch of times. And so yeah, hopefully you got a good idea of the te form of the verb yu itte combined with the receiving verb kureru, which is kind of expressing this nuance of it being a good thing that you're receiving. And that's the reason why we didn't use the same construction when we said being said sorry to, because when he said sorry to her, it's not so much a gift that she's receiving, it's just something that's being said to her, which she doesn't prefer, because as we see from this sentence, the more preferable thing is being said thank you to. And thus, since kureru means to receive, but with a positive connotation, it's not going to be used at the beginning of the sentence as it is going to be used with arigatou at the second part of the sentence. And so now we move on to the second sentence in this line.
謝って欲しいんじゃなくてしてあげたくてしたことなんだからね。
And we have our last vocabulary term, which is ayamaru, which means to apologize in its te form, so ayamatte. Then it's going to be used in another grammar pattern, which is the te form of a verb plus the word hoshi, which means to want, to basically translate to want someone to do that verb. So ayamatte hoshi is going to be to want your addressee basically to apologize. But of course, our character here doesn't want that actually, so we're actually going to be using the negative form, so ayamatte hoshiinjyanakute. And so yeah, that's just going to turn into a negative. The nai turns into kute because we're kind of continuing the sentence, so we want to connect it to the second part here, and that is going to be a more kind of convoluted combining of giving verbs and whatnot. Here we have shiteagetakute, and this is going to be the verb suru in its te form, shite, plus the giving verb ageru, and ageru is basically the opposite of kureru, which is the receiving verb. So now the giving verb means that you're doing something for someone else and it's kind of perceived as a favor. And so shiteageru is going to be referring to her actions this time to him. And because we only heard this one line and we didn't have the context of everything that happened before it, we're kind of not sure what she actually did, but we're just going to assume that it's a favor that she did. So what we're going to do in the translation is we're just going to translate that to it. I did it. And here, looking into the actual conjugation some more, we see that ageru is in its actually tai form, so basically desirative tai form, so ageru turns into agetai. However, the tai here is once again going to be conjugated, and so what we're going to do is take out that final e and add kute again because we want to continue on the sentence, and the tai form basically acts as an e adjective when you conjugate it, so when we want to continue on the sentence with tai, we just drop that e as we would with an e adjective and add kute right after it. And now, last but not least, we have shita koto nan dakara, and this is going to basically be suru in its past ta form, so suru turns into shita, and it's going to be modifying the word right after it, which is the noun koto, which just means thing. Right after koto we have nan, which is just kind of an emphasis, then after that we have the da, which is just the copula to end a sentence, plus kara right after it, because that's just going to translate to because. And so what basically shita koto nan dakara is going to translate to is basically it was something that I did because I wanted to, and the I wanted to part is going to be that shite agetai part. And okay, yeah, like I said at the beginning, this is a pretty convoluted sentence when it comes to a bunch of the tai forms and the surus and the ageru and the kureru and all that stuff jumbled in together, so it is kind of intimidating when you hear it at first approach, but when you break it down, it's pretty simple. Let's repeat the line once again. Gomenって何度も言われるよりありがとうってikkaiってくれた方が相手は満足するの。謝って欲しいんじゃなくてしてあげたくてしたことなんだから。And so what this will translate to is I'd rather hear thank you once than sorry over and over again. I did it because I wanted to help, not because I wanted you to apologize.
ごめんって何度も言われるよりありがとうって一回言ってくれた方が相手は満足するの。謝って欲しいんじゃなくてしてあげたくてしたことなんだからね。
And so yeah, in retrospect, it's a pretty long sentence. Not sure if you'll want to remember it completely to use in your everyday conversation when you're trying to convince someone to be more reliable and dependent on you as a friend. But yeah, hopefully it did make sense how every single part of it was working, and you could make sense of it enough to maybe use pieces of it in your own everyday language. So once again, this has been another anime line of the day with the 8th episode of Re:Zero, and until next time.